When a Labrador is found abandoned, you would think it would be an easy case to work with, but even Labradors can be a challenge, and this one I'm working with today is no exception. Now, when I come into the rescue and we see that we've had new rescue dogs come in, I'm usually expecting large, powerful guard dog breeds, potentially aggressive ones, potentially and usually with lots of reactivity, kind of my bread and butter. But when I came in today and found a Labrador, it was a pleasant surprise and something that I was really eager and excited to sink my teeth into and get started. Now, even with breeds like Labradors, it doesn't mean that they're definitely not going to be aggressive or have a potential for bites. With this Labrador, I had zero information going in, so absolutely everything I had to work out as I was going. There was no information on why it had been given up because it had been found abandoned, so there was just simply no information, and it was a very new case, so the staff at the rescue didn't really have too much information to go off. So, as always, you've got to be very careful at that threshold, and it's always getting the dog out of the kennel that is usually one of the most dangerous areas when starting with a new dog, even a Labrador. So in those first introductions at the kennel, we're definitely looking around reactivity, body language, fear, anxiety, aggression, confidence, passiveness, all of those things. I'm trying to build a picture as quickly as I can to try and understand, first of all, are there any potential dangerous situations I have to be aware of to keep myself and the other members of staff safe, but then also what is then going to be the path forward to be able to help this dog the most. Now, with this Labrador, I really wasn't concerned. It became quite evident that I didn't think I was at any risk, so we were able to go in, get a lead on him and then get him outside quickly. And this is where we found the challenges with the Labrador. It was evident immediately that this was a Labrador that had no rules, no boundaries, no good discipline or guidance from a canine leader. He was absolutely appalling on the lead. There was no kind of looking up to me for guidance and direction, which with these shelter dogs is completely common. And I'm yet to meet one that has got that level of leadership and trust in humans. So definitely there, I knew that was going to have to be a starting point. And then when we got him into the training field, it became very interesting about just how much this dog was marking and displaying marking type behaviours of urinating excessively, scratching at the grass after he'd urinated to spread his pheromones, spread his scent, and was absolutely scent driven. And again, just because a dog doesn't display any kind of aggressive type behaviours doesn't mean that it doesn't display behaviours that can definitely give them given up on. Now, in these kind of cases with Labradors or breeds that are very rarely aggressive or what you might class as dominant or pose kind of a physical threat to other dogs or humans, usually one of the most common ones is around lack of obedience, and especially once we get into that Labrador size, around pulling, because it simply makes them miserable to walk. They then don't get walked, which then means destructive behaviour is very common set in with the Labrador in the home, which then leads on to these Labradors or breeds similar being given up on. So for me, with this Labrador, absolutely my plan of action was to always establish leadership first, which would then allow me to build relationship with the Labrador, which can then lead to communication. And in that communication part is where I'm then going to be able to teach some really basic obedience, some basic manners. A nice heel walk, a nice sit and stay, and a bit of recall will mean that this Labrador will get rehomed really easily. My concern with this Labrador is that he is old, so he hasn't got that puppy cuteness factor that people want when they're coming to look at rescue and shelter dogs. And if they were to take him out for a walk and he's pulling all over the place, hurting people's arms, which he will do because he's a strong boy, it was going to be my concern being that they just simply wouldn't want to rehome him because it's a lot of work for a lot of people to be able to address those issues. So that absolutely became my priority, was getting this Labrador under control, building some leadership so that we can build some engagement. I need to get him working with me. Once I can get him working with me, it means I can then teach him these basic communications, and this isn't a case that I'm concerned about. I think if we can do those things over a few sessions, we'll absolutely find him a wonderful forever home. Now, usually with a breed like a Labrador, food drive is incredibly strong, which then allows you to build engagement really quickly. With this Labrador, it was a little bit different, and this is where the case was a little bit more complex than many other cases like this. And that was around his kind of scent drive and that need for him to be marking everything. That was distracting him heavily, which then wasn't causing any kind of engagement with me. He didn't want anything to do with me. He just wanted to get away so he could go and follow his nose and go and mark his scent. So I started with a bit of what we call a movement tune-up, where we're doing lots of different directional changes and we're making sure that the Labrador very clearly understands that we're going where I'm going, not where you're going. And if you look up to me for guidance and direction, I'm going to really positively praise that. And I'm going to lavish it on with food reward, verbal praise and physical praise. And we're just going to do lots of different direction changes. It's a very basic maneuver. If when I make a direction change, the Labrador continues to go the way he wants to go, we just use some very minor lead pressure to kind of get his attention back to us, try and get him coming back to me, building that engagement, looking up to me for guidance and direction, then we can lavish on the praise. It's a very basic drill. It's not something super fancy. It doesn't look amazing to watch, but it's something that is incredibly important and really builds those foundation layers that I'm always preaching about in terms of getting that engagement with your dog. When they understand, oh, I want to go that way, but he's going that way, so I better go with him. Once we can start getting that mindset of I better look up to him, I should look up to him, let's see what he's doing, what do I need to do, then we can build on top of that. Then obedience becomes absolutely easy. Then testing drive is the next big factor that I want to build into the equation. Once I can start to build that leadership and that relationship so that I can start to get that engagement, then I want to know, well, what drives this dog? What can I tap into? What things does he find really valuable and really rewarding? So then how can I control those things to get him to look up to me for guidance and direction with those situations? Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, a Labrador is usually incredibly food driven, and that's usually the go-to. With this dog, it was a little bit different. So I think we're going to have to spend a little bit more time trying to break down that leadership and relationship element, because we've got this intense scent drive that is really distracting him and making it very difficult for him to be able to pay attention so that we can move forward. It became evident that he did have some obedience work. Somebody has definitely done some basic sit, stay, recall type work. However, and this is a very common problem with the implementation of a purely positive based approach, if you don't know how to implement it with finesse, that those obedience tricks were very much bribery led. That dog was only interested in doing it for a food reward, and then instantly his attention was back gone. So again, we have to restructure that and let him know, no, you're doing this because I'm asking you to do it, and you will continue to do it until I tell you otherwise. Again, building that relationship, building that trust and looking up to us for guidance and direction. Not doing it because I'm bribing you to do it. We're doing it because we have that loving relationship, and because I care about you and I want to keep you safe and out of this shelter. I need you to be looking up to me so that I can give you the guidance and direction that you need to make you a safe, amazing, enjoyable canine companion. So after all of these tests, where we look at a little bit of temperament testing, we look at a bit of drive testing, we look at a bit of obedience testing, I've now got a really good picture of what this Labrador is and some of the issues that he's facing and some of the things that we need to work on. So moving forward over the next few sessions, we're going to be doing some very serious obedience work, and we're going to be really dialing in on that leadership aspect. I truly believe that if we can rock solid that leadership foundation, then build up that relationship and engagement on top of it, the obedience will then just become an absolute dream like it is with Labradors. But this is a telltale sign in a classic case of where a positive only program can fall down. When the dog is only doing it for the reward and only doing it for the bribery, and then you add something like an intense scent drive on top of that, it's, yeah, okay, I'll have that now, I'm back to going over here. I'm pulling, I'm driving towards this thing that I'm following with my scent. Now it's miserable to walk the dog. Dog doesn't get walked, destructive behaviours set in, dog gets given up to shelter or abandoned. That is what I would put my money on has happened in this case. So what we need to do is go, brilliant, I love that you know the obedience and I want to reward you for it, but you need to understand that you do it because I'm asking you to do it, not just because I'm bribing you. Our relationships with dogs don't work like that. Our relationships are based on calm, consistent leadership on our part, and then that loving bond and trust that comes from that on the dog's part, where they simply do as they ask because they want to and they know it's the right thing, as opposed to doing it simply because they're going to get a treat at the end of it. If we can restructure that, then absolutely praise and reward, but it has to come on top of leadership, relationship, then communication and praise. So that will be our plan moving forward with this dog. Bit of an interesting one, bit of a fun one, not as dramatic as some of the aggressive cases, but there's definitely some interesting complex areas of kind of canine behaviour and psychology, and it shows how even within a breed there can be so much variance and there is no one methodology that works well. You have to have a balanced approach to be able to choose the right tool for the right dog at the right time to make it that perfect canine companion.